After Herm Edwards' first season at Arizona State, there was a lot of excitement for what the future of the Arizona State football program looked like, as many viewed them as a sleeping giant. But Edwards and his staff failed to learn all the NCAA rules, which led to multiple recruiting violations that left the program in a disastrous place. After one of the worst 2-year periods in program history, going 3-9 in back-to-back years, many expected the same for this year, with Arizona State being given an over-under win total of 4.5 with a brutal schedule. There was not a lot of hope heading into the year 2 of the Kenny Dillingham era, but that has since changed as Arizona State is off to its best start since 2019 and will look to go 4-0 for the first time since 2016 when they take on Texas Tech this weekend. This is the fall and rise of Arizona State football. But before we get into this, if you enjoy college football content like this, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Also, let me know what your favorite story has been this season in the comment section below. When Arizona State decided to fire head coach Todd Graham in 2017, Ray Anderson already knew who he wanted to replace the former head ball coach with, a guy by the name of Herm Edwards. Edwards was a passionate former NFL coach who led the New York Jets to a 39-41 record and 3 playoff appearances, and the Kansas City Chiefs to a 15-33 record and a playoff appearance as well. At the time, he was serving as a studio analyst for ESPN, and was popular on the network. Anderson was Edwards' former agent and loved his former client's passion, thinking he could make the Sun Devils a juggernaut in the Pac-12 with his coaching prowess. The problem was, Edwards hadn't been on a college staff since 1989 and hadn't coached in nearly a decade besides an annual high school all-star game. A week after firing Graham, Edwards was named the program's next head coach, and they put in place a confusing leadership model which would see Arizona State be run more like an NFL team than a college team, in hopes of bringing the Sun Devils program to their first conference title since 2007. According to The Athletic's Doug Haller, the model was created mostly to deflect criticism from Anderson's unorthodox hire. While things started off great for the Edwards regime, seeing the team go 7-6 in 2018 and 8-5 in 2019, Edwards was building one step at a time and won over the national media when he was head coach. Everything seemed great back in 2018 when they upset number 15 Michigan State at Sun Devil Stadium. His kindness and sincerity stuck out in an ego-driven world. Recruiting rankings went up and all seemed good. In 2018, they brought in Brandon Ayuk, Darren Butler, and Merlin Robertson, while in 2019, they brought in 4-star quarterback Jaden Daniels. He had kept some of Graham's assistants for continuity and brought in Antonio Pierce, who always wanted to prove everyone wrong after going through the JUCO route and going undrafted but winning a Super Bowl during his playing career. Pierce was in charge of recruiting and put in the work to turn the talent-rich state of California into a pipeline. He also led a push to stretch Arizona State's brand all the way to Florida and up the eastern seaboard. Edwards began to groom Pierce into a head coach as his possible replacement when he decided to retire, a lot like Tony Dungy did back for him back in the day. Pierce began to get more and more power, with Haller writing a few years back, "The timetable isn't clear," but sources indicated that Pierce assumed considerable program power. Once elevated to associate head coach in February of 2020, he had a major voice in nearly everything, including staff hires and dismissals. One former athletic department staffer referred to Pierce as Arizona State's head coach and Edwards as the face of the program. During a recruiting meeting, Edwards once told his staff, "What AP says, I'm saying, so listen to AP and do what he says." Those who went against the dynamic were told to stay in their lane. Issues began to occur during 2020 as the program broke NCAA recruiting rules during the lockdown and the team finished the season 2-2. During the spring of 2021, an anonymous source sent a package to Arizona State's compliance office accusing the football program of hosting recruits and paying for their travel during the pandemic dead period. 2021 saw the team go 8-5, but following the season, a wave of players entered the transfer portal, some leaving for better football situations and others for NIL opportunities. Daniels, who once sat with Edwards' family at a men's basketball game, transferred to LSU. Top receiver Ricky Pearsall left for Florida. Top defensive lineman Jermaine Lowell left for Louisville, while rising linebacker Eric Gentry left for USC. At one point, it looked like Arizona State was going to be competing for the conference title. After the roster shakeup, they were picked to finish 10th in the conference. The program finished the 2021 season ranked 128th in penalty yardage, and a visitor to practice mentioned the team lacked any urgency, with Edwards rarely having the team run it back after messing up a play. After a 1-2 start in 2022, which saw the Sun Devils lose to Eastern Michigan 30-21 at home, Edwards was fired. In the post-game press conference, Edwards was still friendly, as always, but seemed defeated for the first time since his arrival in Tempe. For more than a year, the NCAA had been investigating the football program. Edwards lost 5 assistants during the probe, including defensive coordinator Antonio Pierce and offensive coordinator Zach Hill. Edwards never bothered to learn the NCAA bylaws and did not realize how different college athletes were to pro athletes. Edwards was given the title of CEO of Football Operations by Anderson, rather than the title of head coach. Edwards' main task was to coach players, mold coaches, and recruit, but he wouldn't have to worry about evaluating every prospect. He could leave the details to his staff. Stories came out that staffers had to babysit Edwards at events where contact with certain prospects were prohibited. One staffer told Holler, "He's such a nice guy that he would just, 'Hey, can we take a picture?' 'Oh yeah, no problem.' He didn't know that was against the rules." In an email The Athletic obtained through a public record request, former Senior Associate Athletic Director Tim Cassidy told Deputy Athletic Director Gene Boyd that people advising Edwards should know the rules and be looking out for him since he is the first-year college coach. Cassidy then listed the names of several people in Arizona State's football personnel and development department who had not taken an NCAA certification recruiting test. The Edwards experiment fractured the fan base's confidence and caused issues throughout the athletic department. Opposing coach told The Athletic, "It wasn't hard to get intel on that season's team because some within the Arizona State athletic department wanted a coaching change." The investigation would conclude earlier this year and place the program on probation for 4 years and penalized former football staffers in their roles in Level 1 violations. The penalties also included an undisclosed fine, a self-imposed postseason ban for the 2023 season, vacation of records for contests in which ineligible student athletes competed, scholarship reductions, and recruiting restrictions. The 4 staffers also agreed to, or did not contest, show clause penalties for a period ranging from 3 to 10 years. The program was also forced to disassociate with an unnamed booster for 5 years. Edwards would return to ESPN, and Antonio Pierce would go on to become the head coach of the Las Vegas Raiders. But in their wake, they left a program that was a mess and finished the 2022 season with a 3-9 record, their worst record since 1994 and first losing season since 2016. Ray Anderson would resign from his role as vice president of athletics in November under intense fire from fans, and deputy athletic director Gene Boyd, who oversaw the football program, also stepped down. Kenny Dillingham was given the tough job to fix the Arizona State football program. Before he arrived in Tempe, Dillingham attended Arizona State as a student, graduating in 2012, but before he even graduated college, he had began his coaching career. After tearing his ACL as a senior in high school, he began coaching the JV team at Chaparral as an assistant. When he graduated college, he was promoted to the school's offensive coordinator at 21 years old and joined the Sun Devils staff as an offensive assistant in 2014. He would then become a grad assistant at Memphis before being promoted to quarterback and tight end coach in 2017. In 2018, after Chip Long left to take the Notre Dame offensive coordinator position, he became the official quarterback coach for the team. Following Darrell Dickey's departure to Texas A&M, Long's successor, Dillingham was promoted to offensive coordinator. From 2017 to 2018, Memphis had back-to-back top 5 offenses in college football. While at Memphis, Dillingham was rated the #1 recruiter in the conference by the 24/7 recruiting rankings. He would then join Gus Malzahn's staff in 2019, helping coach Bo Nix to the SEC Rookie of the Year award and the most improved offense in the SEC. The offense averaged 33.2 points per game, and Auburn finished the year 9-3. Once again, he showed his ability to recruit, helping Auburn finish with the highest recruiting ranking in the 24/7 Sports recruiting ranking era. Dillingham would replace Kendall Briles as Mike Norvell's offense coordinator before joining Dan Lanning's staff as an offense coordinator at Oregon. When he was named Arizona State's head coach, he became the first Sun Devil alum and native of Arizona to be the school's head coach. When he arrived at Arizona State, they were coming off a 3-9 season and were dealing with NCAA sanctions that led to a roster overhaul and a 2023 postseason ban that occurred under Edwards. Dillingham was given the tough task in his first head coaching job. They brought in 31 transfers and hoped to be competitive in a loaded Pac-12 during its last year as a member. It would start the season off 1-0 with a 24-21 win over Southern Utah, would go on a 6-game losing streak including a 29-0 loss to Fresno State. They gave Washington a scare in Seattle, falling to the national runner-ups 15-7, although they were dealing with a ton of injuries on their offensive line. They would get a big win over Washington State 38-27 before getting blown out by Utah 55-3. They then beat UCLA but finished the year on a 2-game losing streak, losing to Oregon 49-13 and Arizona 59-23. Heading into the Arizona game, freshman quarterback Jaden Rashada was benched for disciplinary reasons and Trenton Bourguet was dealing with an illness. Dillingham got creative for the first series, moving tight end Jalen Connors to running back and running back Cameron Scadaboo, man that's a fun name to say, at quarterback, and ran the ball 7 straight times and scored a touchdown. During the post-game press conference, he said, "You think I like coming up here and talking about how we just lost our territorial cup? It's miserable." Throughout his first season, he was straightforward about everything, did not make excuses or tried to misdirect blame. Dillingham always said they needed to get better, and Dillingham also needed to get the fan base back into place to bring back hope after fans were left scarred by Ray Anderson and Edwards. I even went to the Oregon-Arizona State game last year, and the stadium was pretty dead and empty, though I was impressed with the student section for the early part of the game. Dillingham understood the Valley and knows there are diehard fans. Throughout the season, Dillingham pointed out several times how much help the program needs in regards to name, image, and likeness compensation. After the season finale, they got right onto the recruiting trail and planned to fundraise. The fan base in the Phoenix area doesn't buy into rebuilds. They show up when the team is good. When the Arizona Diamondbacks went to the World Series during the regular season, they had the 20th ranked home attendance. Once the team caught fire advancing to the World Series, the atmosphere at Chase Field became electric. Dillingham spoke on this saying, "I'm from here, so I could say anything I want about the Valley, right? Because I'm one of them. I'm talking about myself. We're frontrunners. We love watching winners. Well, the hard part is, in college athletics, what comes first? The support comes first." Dillingham also never got to develop a quarterback throughout the season. The same guy who developed Bo Nix at Auburn and Oregon, as well as Jordan Travis at Florida State. Rashada got injured and missed 9 games. Drew Pine got hurt, and Bourget dealt with injuries throughout the season as well. But Dillingham felt the team was going in the right direction after a tough first season, saying, "We're heading in the right direction. The support is heading in the right direction. We just have to slowly get better. When we get the right support, once this place gets rocking, it will never fall again." Heading into the 2024 season, Jaden Rashada transferred to Georgia, Jacob Conover transferred to Utah State, and Drew Pine transferred to Missouri after finishing his degree at Notre Dame. Bourget returned and competed with Michigan State transfer Sam Levitt and Georgia Tech and Nebraska quarterback Jeff Sims. Sam Levitt would win the starting quarterback job. They entered the season with 6 returning starters on the offense and 5 on the defense, and were projected to finish second to last in the Big 12, just ahead of Houston. They also had the 3rd toughest schedule in the Big 12 with non-conference games against Wyoming, Mississippi State, and a dangerous Texas State team who may be competing for a Group of 5 playoff bid. According to Fox Sports, they were given an over-under win total of 4.5. They have to play Utah, Kansas, Kansas State, Oklahoma State, Arizona, and UCF throughout the season, which look to be the 6 best teams in the conference. But they did return running back Cameron Scadaboo, a Sacramento State transfer who broke out against USC last season. He finished last year rushing for 783 yards and 9 touchdowns, while also having 24 receptions and had a passing touchdown. In Arizona State's 48-7 win over Wyoming, Scadaboo did not have a crazy game, only having 49 yards and a touchdown on 11 carries, but added a 17-yard reception as well. It would be against Mississippi State, where Scadaboo would break out rushing for 262 yards on 33 carries, averaging 7.9 yards per carry, while also having 35 receiving yards on 3 receptions, to account for nearly 300 total yards in the Sun Devils' 30-23 win over the Bulldogs. Last week, he rushed for 62 yards and 2 touchdowns, also having 3 receptions for 21 yards in the Sun Devils' 31-28 win over Texas State. When the game was on the line, he delivered. Sam Levitt has also played well, throwing for 573 yards, 3 touchdowns and 1 interception, while also rushing for 155 yards and 3 touchdowns on the ground so far this season. Arizona State has started this season 3-0, it being their first time starting 3-0 since 2019. If they beat Texas Tech this week, it will be the first time starting 4-0 since 2016. After back-to-back 3-9 seasons, Arizona State has already matched its win total from last season. Dane Miller wrote, "Kenny Dillingham's group secured a solid road victory against Texas State. Sam Levitt operated the offense effectively, and Cam Scadaboo is a beast on the ground." Entering Big 12 play with a 3-0 mark, there are now expectations for Arizona State to compete for a conference championship. While Don Williams from the Lubbock Avalanche Journal wrote, "There are teams every year starting 3-0 and finishing under 500. While Arizona State has a tough schedule remaining, Kenny Dillingham looks to have the program going in the right direction and has his team in a fight to make a bowl game, which seemed unlikely heading into the season. They still may miss a bowl game, with the remaining schedule being on the road against Texas Tech, Cincinnati, Oklahoma State, Kansas State, and Arizona, while hosting Kansas, Utah, UCF, and BYU. Heading into the Texas Tech game, the Red Raiders are favored by 3 points, with a 52.3% chance of winning the game, But Arizona State are favorites in their games against Kansas, Cincinnati, and BYU, according to the matchup predictor. I have a 50-50 chance against Arizona. It is nice to see Arizona State football on the rise again, and I can't wait to see what happens during the remainder of the season. What do you think? How well does Arizona State do this season? Let me know in the comment section below. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to check out one of my other videos YouTube thinks you will love right here. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, remember to embrace the grind.